The nightclub smelled like spilled beer, desperation, and onion rings fried in oil old enough to vote. Jake Mercer stood under a flickering spotlight staring at 6 audience members who looked personally offended he existed. One woman was asleep with her mouth open. A guy near the stage scratched lottery tickets while Jake delivered what he considered one of his stronger jokes about divorce lawyers being coupon assassins in expensive shoes. Silence. Then somebody dropped a fork. Jake nodded slowly. Thank you? The fork gets me. Even the bartender looked embarrassed for him, polishing the same glass for 15 straight minutes like he was trying to erase Jake from existence through friction alone. Jake sighed into the microphone. My therapist says I sabotaged my own happiness. Which is impressive because I can't even afford a therapist. That was actually my landlord. A pity laugh. One single pity laugh. He pointed excitedly. Yes. Thank you, emotionally exhausted table 3. You're the reason I haven't walked into traffic. The tiny crowd clapped half-heartedly. Jake bowed dramatically like he just performed for a stadium instead of 6 alcoholics and a confused tourist from Belgium. 2 hours later, the club emptied out. Jake counted his earnings beside the bar. $38. 1 Canadian coin. And somebody's hotel room keycard. Big night, the bartender muttered. Jake stuffed the money into his pocket. At this rate, I'll only be homeless recreationally. He headed toward the exit, already preparing himself for another night in his apartment above the laundromat where the walls vibrated every time someone washed jeans. His dinner waiting at home was half a carnival-sized bag of peanuts and a questionable yogurt that had started separating into emotional layers. He pushed open the nightclub door. Jake Mercer? The voice stopped him instantly. A woman stood beneath the neon sign outside the club. Tall. Elegant. Dark red coat shimmering beneath the rain. Her silver eyes almost glowed against the streetlight. She looked completely out of place beside the dumpster and drunk smokers arguing nearby. Jake blinked. Wow. Either I'm finally dying, or someone expensive is talking to me. The woman smiled calmly. You joke when uncomfortable. I joke when conscious. She stepped closer and handed him a faded little backpack covered in carnival patches and glitter stains. Your sister wanted the child hidden until now. Jake stared at her. Then laughed. Oh good. We've reached the human trafficking portion of my evening. I'm serious. My sister Emily died 3 years ago. Yes. So either this is a scam or grief finally melted my brain like cheap cheese. Before the woman answered, a small voice came from behind an arcade machine near the alley wall. Oh wow. Mom was right. You do look like depression wearing bowling shoes. Jake turned. A little girl stepped into view holding a giant blue cotton candy almost bigger than her head. 9 years old maybe. Messy curls. Sharp eyes. Tiny leather boots with glitter stars on them. She looked Jake up and down with brutal disappointment. You're shorter than I expected too. Jake stared blankly. Excuse me? You heard me, Uncle Clearance Sale Batman. The bartender inside burst out laughing loud enough to snort. Jake pointed at the child. Who is this tiny insult wizard? The woman folded her arms. Her name is Luna. Luna shoved the cotton candy into her mouth while still staring at Jake judgmentally. You smell like old nachos and fear. That's impossible, Jake muttered. I showered yesterday. Your beard looks tired. Jake opened his mouth, then closed it again because honestly she wasn't wrong. He looked back at the mysterious woman. Okay, seriously, who are you people? The woman reached into her pocket and pulled out a small crystal-shaped device glowing faint blue beneath her fingers. She whispered something into it in a strange musical language Jake had never heard before. The air around the device flickered for half a second like heat waves rising from pavement. Jake blinked hard. Okay. Cool. That's concerning. The woman calmly slipped the device away. Your sister trusted you. My sister also trusted gas station sushi. She wasn't perfect. Luna suddenly stepped forward and pulled a folded photograph from her pocket. It was old and slightly bent at the corners. Jake froze. It showed Emily sitting beside a carnival trailer, laughing so hard her eyes were closed. One arm wrapped around a tiny little girl sitting on her lap. Luna. Jake felt the joke leave his body completely. She talked about you constantly, Luna said quietly. Mostly insulting your haircut choices. That sounds like Emily. Also, she said if anything happened to her, you'd protect me. Jake swallowed hard. Emily disappeared for years before she died. Nobody knew where she went. She traveled with us, the woman explained softly. The carnival became her home. Jake looked down at Luna again. The kid tilted her head. So, do you own any food that isn't expired, or are we both gambling tonight? Jake's apartment looked exactly like the kind of place a raccoon would reject for being emotionally unhealthy. Luna walked inside carrying her backpack while staring around in absolute horror. You live here voluntarily? Jake tossed his keys onto a pizza box. Rent in this city is expensive. There's a plant in your kitchen that looks suicidal. That's basil. That's depression with leaves. Jake shut the door behind them while Naira remained outside in the hallway, calm as ever beneath the flickering lights. You're just leaving her here? Jake asked. Naira gave him a small smile. Emily trusted you. Emily also dated a man who sold swords from his van. He was kind. He got arrested at medieval times. Luna wandered deeper into the apartment. Every few seconds she discovered something worse. She opened the refrigerator. Oh my God! What? The milk has chunks. That's texture. That's bacteria with ambition. Jake rubbed his face tiredly while Luna continued inspecting his life like a tiny government investigator. You sleep on that? She asked, pointing at the mattress on the floor. It's memory foam. It remembers failure. Naira actually laughed at that. Not a polite laugh either. A real one. Jake looked at her suspiciously. You enjoy this way too much. In my experience, Naira said softly, human suffering becomes more tolerable when mocked properly. Jake narrowed his eyes. You flirt weird. Naira stepped closer slowly. You have no idea. Then she walked away down the hallway before Jake could answer. He stood frozen for a second. Luna gagged dramatically behind him. EW. Adult tension. She's weird. She's hot though. Jake nearly choked on air. You are 9. I was raised by carnival workers. One taught me lockpicking during math lessons. That sentence alone explains so much. The next morning started with smoke alarms. Jake stumbled into the kitchen half asleep to find Luna standing on a chair making pancakes with a cigarette lighter because she couldn't figure out the stove. Why are you cooking fire circles? I was hungry. You could have killed us. Relax. A knife thrower named Marco taught me kitchen safety. Why would a knife thrower teach kitchen safety? Because he accidentally stabbed a clown once. Jake stared at her. I need several follow-up conversations. 3 days later, Luna attended one of Jake's stand-up sets because he couldn't afford a babysitter, and the bartender refused after Luna called him human beef jerky. Jake stood nervously beneath the spotlight inside another half-dead club. So I recently became a guardian, he told the audience. Which is shocking because I once lost custody of a hamster. A few laughs. Progress. Then Luna shouted from the back table. The hamster ran away because you fed it lunch meat. The audience burst into laughter. Jake pointed toward her. Please ignore the tiny knock. You bought a cactus and somehow drowned it. That cactus was weak. More laughter. Phones came out instantly. Jake realized people weren't laughing at his prepared material anymore. They were laughing at him fighting with a child half his size. And somehow, it worked. For 20 straight minutes Luna heckled him, while Jake fired back desperately. You dress like a substitute pirate. You smell like expired coupons. Your bedtime is 8. Your credit score is emotionally concerning. By the end of the night, people were crying laughing. A guy near the stage yelled, Bring the kid back tomorrow. Another shouted, She cooked you alive, man! Jake checked his phone afterward while walking home beside Luna. Millions of views. Clips already spreading everywhere. Tiny Goblin destroys washed-up comedian. Roast battle between uncle and feral child. One video already had over 200,000 likes. Jake stopped walking. What the hell? Luna grinned proudly. Congratulations. Your humiliation is monetizable. Over the next week, everything exploded. Podcast invitations. Comedy offers. Sponsors. People online became obsessed with them. Meanwhile, Luna adapted to apartment life like a tiny criminal raccoon. She stole hotel shampoos. Hustled strangers at chess and parks. Sold fake carnival ghost stories online for $5 each. Jake caught her once teaching neighborhood kids how to fake psychic powers using magnets. You cannot start a child cult. It's not a cult. It's entrepreneurship. One night after another sold-out comedy set, Jake returned home exhausted and found an old video file open on his laptop. Luna sat quietly on the couch. Emily appeared on screen smiling weakly into the camera. If Luna's watching this, Emily said softly, it means I probably lost an argument with the universe. Jake froze. Emily laughed gently. Jake, if you're there too, I know you're panicking. You panic every time life expects maturity from you. Luna smiled faintly. Emily continued. But you always made me laugh when things got hard. Even when we had nothing. Even when everything hurt. Jake sat down slowly. She's going to need that from you now. The room became quiet except for the washing machines vibrating through the floor below them. Then Luna looked over at him. You crying? Jake wiped his eyes quickly. No. You absolutely are. I have allergies. To emotions? Jake Mercer had officially become internet famous against his will. Which was unfortunate because the internet had discovered every humiliating detail about him within 48 hours. People online found old comedy clips from 2009 where he had frosted tips and wore leather pants. Someone edited dramatic music behind footage of Luna verbally destroying him on stage. A reaction channel titled, Tiny Child Commits Public Murder, reached 3 million views overnight. And somehow, people loved them. Comedy clubs that previously ignored Jake were suddenly begging him to perform. One manager called him personally. We want the angry child too. She's not part of the act. In the clip she called you a bankrupt werewolf. We'll triple the payment. Jake looked across the apartment where Luna sat eating cereal directly from the box while watching conspiracy documentaries. You hear that? Congratulations. You're employable. Luna nodded seriously. This is how child labor begins. Money finally started coming in. Real money. Enough for groceries that didn't glow suspiciously. Enough for a couch without mysterious stains. Jake even bought vegetables voluntarily once, which terrified Luna. You cooked asparagus, she whispered. Who'll hurt you emotionally? Things almost felt normal. Then the Mercer family appeared. Jake opened his apartment door one afternoon and immediately regretted having relatives. His Aunt Denise stood there wearing enough perfume to legally qualify as chemical warfare. Behind her waited Cousin Trevor and Jake's older Uncle Barry, who somehow always looked sweaty regardless of temperature. Denise spread her arms dramatically. There's our family. Jake blinked slowly. Interesting. Because none of you answered Emily's calls for 6 years. Denise ignored that instantly. We saw your videos online. And little Luna is just adorable. Luna stepped beside Jake holding a juice box. You smell like rich divorce. Jake covered his mouth to stop laughing. Trevor crouched awkwardly toward Luna. Hey kiddo. We're your family. Luna stared at him. You look like a guy who loses arguments to vending machines. Jake physically turned away because his shoulders started shaking. The relatives entered anyway like invasive species wearing expensive shoes. Within minutes, Denise started suggesting Luna needed stable guardianship. Uncle Barry kept asking about sponsorship deals and streaming revenue while pretending not to. Trevor asked if they could start a family YouTube channel. Luna looked horrified. I'd rather fight a raccoon with a knife. Jake folded his arms. You people ignored Emily when she was alive. Why are you here now? Denise sighed dramatically. We're concerned about Luna's future. No, Luna said calmly. You're concerned about money. The apartment went silent. Then Luna slowly pulled out her phone. Oh good, she said cheerfully. We're live streaming. Jake turned pale instantly. Wait. Too late. 10,000 viewers already watching. Denise's fake smile twitched. Luna pointed the phone directly at her. Tell the audience how many times you visited my mom in the hospital. Denise stammered. Well, 0. The answer was 0. Comments exploded instantly. Trevor tried jumping into frame, smiling nervously. Families have misunderstandings. You borrowed money from my mom and bought a jet ski. Jake nearly collapsed laughing into the kitchen counter. Uncle Barry pointed angrily. This child is disrespectful. Luna zoomed the phone directly into his sweaty forehead. You look like an anxious meatball. The live stream clipped instantly. By morning, Anxious Meatball trended online worldwide. Jake hadn't laughed that hard in years. Later that night, after the relatives finally fled the apartment, Jake found Naira sitting alone on the rooftop outside his building. Wind moved through her dark silver hair while city lights reflected in her strange glowing eyes. You enjoying the chaos? Jake asked. Naira smiled softly. Human families are terrifying. You're not wrong. Jake sat beside her holding 2 coffees. She accepted one politely but never drank it. Jake noticed that again. You never eat. Never sleep. Your phone literally melted last week. It was defective. It exploded. A minor flaw. Jake studied her carefully. Who are you really? Naira stayed quiet for a long moment. Then she looked up toward the stars. The carnival Emily joined was not entirely human. Jake laughed once. Of course it wasn't. Honestly, that's on me for expecting normal. We traveled Earth studying humanity. Naira explained quietly. Your species fascinates us. Because we're dumb enough to eat gas station sushi? Because humans survive pain through laughter. Jake looked at her. Naira continued softly. Other species collapse under grief. Humans make jokes at funerals. You turn heartbreak into comedy. You weaponize humiliation. That might be the nicest insult anyone's ever given me. She smiled. And for one dangerous second, Jake completely forgot how breathing worked. Then Luna burst onto the rooftop carrying a stuffed rabbit. You guys flirting up here? Jake nearly dropped his coffee. Jesus Christ, child! Luna narrowed her eyes suspiciously at Naira. Also, this bunny keeps vibrating. The stuffed rabbit suddenly glowed faint blue. Naira's expression changed instantly. Oh no. Jake blinked. That's not a normal sentence. Naira stood slowly. Emily hid the artifact inside the toy. Jake stared blankly. I'm sorry, the what? Jake had imagined many ways his comedy career could end. Being vaporized by aliens during a sold-out performance was not high on the list. The nightclub was packed wall-to-wall for the first time in Jake's miserable professional history. Fans wore homemade shirts saying Team Feral Child while others held signs reading Roast Him, Luna. Jake stood beneath the spotlight trying to process the fact that people had willingly paid money to see him fail publicly. This is upsetting, he admitted into the microphone. For years nobody respected my comedy. Apparently all I needed was emotional damage and a tiny landlord with anger issues. Luna sat near the front row eating popcorn. I still don't respect your comedy. The audience exploded laughing. Jake pointed at her. See? This is workplace harassment. You cried during a dog food commercial. It was emotional storytelling. Before Luna could respond, every light inside the club suddenly flickered black. The room went silent. Then the ceiling speakers screamed with static. A massive crackling sound echoed outside like thunder tearing apart the sky itself. Audience members pulled out phones instantly because humanity had collectively decided surviving danger was less important than recording it vertically. 3 enormous figures stepped through the nightclub entrance. Tall, armored, glowing blue eyes beneath silver helmets. The entire crowd stared silently for 2 seconds. Then somebody yelled, "Oh my God, this immersive theater is amazing!" People started clapping. Jake blinked rapidly. "Okay, concerning development." One of the armored aliens pointed directly toward Luna's stuffed rabbit. "Return the artifact." Luna slowly stood from her seat. "You guys look like evil yoga instructors." The crowd howled laughing. The alien paused awkwardly. Jake whispered toward Naira beside the stage. "Please tell me Comic-Con got aggressive." Naira's expression stayed tense. "Those are bounty hunters from the Varex Coalition." That did not help. The lead alien raised an energy weapon. Audience members immediately started filming harder. "Oh, this is real commitment to the bit. Bro, the special effects are insane." Jake panicked. "Okay, everybody stay calm." Luna grabbed the microphone first. "Attention humans. If we die tonight, please delete my uncle's search history." Jake choked. "What search history?" The audience screamed, laughing again. One bounty hunter lunged toward the stage. Jake reacted purely on survival instinct and smashed a metal stool across the alien's helmet. The stool shattered instantly. The alien barely moved. Jake stared at the broken stool. "Okay, wow. You people are built disrespectfully." Chaos exploded. Audience members thought everything was staged, which somehow made things worse. They cheered every explosion like drunken sports fans. Naira finally stepped forward with a frustrated sigh. Her silver eyes suddenly glowed bright white. The entire nightclub shook violently. Then her human disguise disappeared. Dark glowing markings spread across her skin like living starlight. Her hair floated weightlessly around her while blue energy crackled through the air. The crowd lost its collective mind. A guy near the bar screamed, "Marry me, Space Mommy!" Naira blasted one bounty hunter through a table. Jake stared at her in shock. "You got significantly hotter somehow, and I'm upset about it." "Focus, Jake!" "Trying!" Luna climbed onto the stage holding the stuffed rabbit. The toy vibrated wildly before suddenly splitting open. Inside rested a glowing crystal cube no bigger than a deck of cards. The bounty hunters froze immediately. One dropped to a knee. "The memory core!" The cube projected a hologram instantly. Emily appeared above the stage smiling softly. Jake stopped breathing. "Hey idiots!" Emily's hologram said warmly. Luna's eyes filled instantly. Emily looked directly toward Jake. "If you're seeing this, then Luna found you. Which means the universe finally bullied you into becoming responsible." Jake laughed weakly through tears. Emily continued, "Naira told me humans are emotionally reckless creatures. She was right. But that's why I trusted you." The nightclub became completely silent. "You make people laugh when life hurts. You made me laugh when I was scared. Luna's going to need that more than anything." Jake looked toward Luna standing beside him clutching the rabbit tightly. Emily smiled gently at both of them. "You don't need perfect people to make a family. You just need people who stay." The hologram faded slowly. For once in his life, Jake Mercer had absolutely no joke ready. Then Luna wiped her eyes aggressively. "If you become emotionally stable after this, I'm leaving." Jake snorted so hard he nearly collapsed. The audience erupted cheering again, convinced the emotional alien's speech was somehow part of the comedy act. Police sirens echoed outside. The bounty hunters quietly retreated after Naira terrified them into submission with glowing energy blades, and what Jake described later as aggressively sexy violence. 3 weeks later, Jake performed inside a rebuilt carnival theater beside Luna and Naira. Millions watched their live stream nightly. Humans loved the chaos. Aliens secretly loved it too. Jake adjusted the microphone, while Luna sat beside him kicking her feet. "You know," Jake told the audience, "turns out humanity's greatest survival skill isn't intelligence." Luna grinned. It's surviving humiliation loudly. Naira kissed Jake softly on the cheek before the crowd exploded cheering. Luna gagged dramatically into the microphone. Great! Now I need therapy in multiple galaxies.